It's very hot in the Netherlands, so I've got the window open. You might hear a lot of noise today because of the window being open. My apologies for that. Hello. I promised to make a video regarding locks and alopecia, but I would like to make it a little broader and just speak about several types of alopecia that exist. To make things easy for myself, I've written down a lot, so I'll be reading my screen. Please don't be offended by that, as English is not my language. It makes it easier for me. Without further ado, let's start. What does the word alopecia mean? Well, I've looked it up, and alopecia comes from a Greek word, alopex, and alopex means fox. Alopecia refers to fur loss, often seen in fox. So actually, alopecia is a very fancy word just to describe hair loss. There are several types of alopecia. Some of the alopecia types are triggered by a disorder in the autoimmune system. Other types of alopecia are triggered by hormonal changes, hormones. And then there's alopecia types that are triggered by manipulation, things we do ourselves. Well, let's take a brief look at a couple of types of alopecia that exist. And I will start with the alopecia areata, the non-scarring types of alopecia. Alopecia areata, it says, is a non-scarring type of alopecia. It is thought to be an autoimmune condition, which often starts with isolated patches of hair loss. Commonly, hair loss will be seen in coin-sized patches on the scalp and or across the body, including the beard, the eyebrows, eyelashes, other body hair, including pubic hair. Most of us might have seen pictures of people who suffer from this disease, and perhaps you're watching this video and you also suffer from this disease. Then you know what we are talking about. It's the mostly very round or oval shaped bald patches that occur on the scalp or on the face area, other body parts, as it says. The bald parts are very bald, so you do not see any hair follicle anymore. It's just really bald, what you get to see. And the thing is, with alopecia areata, it can turn into other types of alopecia areata. For instance, alopecia areata totalis. Alopecia areata totalis means that you will lose your hair across your entire scalp, total scalp, totalis. But alopecia areata can also develop into alopecia universalis, which means that you will lose the hair not only on your scalp, but also the rest of your body. Well, I can imagine that it must be devastating to lose all of your hair. I mean, I cried when I started to lose the hair on my crown. So I can well imagine if you suffer from this disease, the totalis or the universalis, that you must feel devastated, and my heart really goes out for those people. Well, next we have another alopecia, and I must honestly tell you, I did not know this kind of alopecia. It's called alopecia areata incognita. And I will read what it says. It says, alopecia areata incognita is also known as diffuse alopecia areata, and it is characterized by sudden thinning of the hair all over the scalp rather than patches of hair loss. This type of hair loss is a rare form of alopecia and predominantly seen in young women. This type of hair loss might resemble telogen effluvium, but definitely is a form of alopecia. This is abundance of hair loss in a short period of time, and all over the scalp. It's diffuse, so it means you will not get the bald patches, but you will suffer the hair loss all over the scalp. I did not know this type of alopecia, but I'm glad I also know about this. Next one is alopecia areata ophiacis. This is another one I've never heard about before. Alopecia areata ophiacis has a specific pattern of hair loss where hair falls out from the sides and the lower back of the scalp. This region on the head is known as the occipital region of the head. And this type of alopecia is hard to cure because it does not respond quickly to medication. It pretty much sounds a little like traction alopecia, where the sides and the back are also involved, but with traction alopecia, the front often also. I did not know this one, but now I know it has a name, ophiacis. Then the next one, the next of the non-scarring alopecia, the alopecia areata barbae. Well, I instantly knew what this would be about. Barbae, that's the beard. So alopecia barbae is a typical form of alopecia areata in which hair loss affects the beard and the mustache area. Mustache or mustache? I don't know how you pronounce it, but the beard and the mustache area, especially they say along the jaw line. I have not ever seen this, but I can imagine there is hair, there are follicles, so if it's alopecia, it can affect that part of your body also. The next one is called androgenetic alopecia. This one is a very well-known one because the common name used for this one is male pattern baldness or female pattern baldness. All of us know people who suffer from this type of alopecia. It is well known. The hair falls out. With men, it falls out at the crown of the scalp, and also in the front, in the M shape. And with women, there is the diffuse hair loss across the crown. Not always with bald patches, but mostly just diffuse hair fall and thinning of the hair. But the middle parting of the hair, mostly it broadens. So that's with the female pattern hair loss, and with the male pattern hair loss, it's like up here and in the front. It's very common. Then we have traction alopecia. I was really surprised to read that traction alopecia is a non-scarring alopecia, as I thought it was. But traction alopecia is a tricky type of alopecia, and I will read what I have found on the internet about this type of alopecia. It says it is a non-scarring alopecia that can become a scarring one. Didn't know that. Traction alopecia is when hair falls out because it has been pulled in the same way for a long time. This condition is often caused by tight hairstyles, relaxers, or extensions. Chronic tension on the hair and the hair shafts leads to breakage and gradual hair loss. Signs of traction alopecia typically start with excessive hair shedding, soreness or tightness on the scalp, particularly after letting hair down from being tied up or braided. As the condition persists, signs will become more severe, such as itchiness and tightness, swelling at the hair follicles and follicular pustules, broken hairs, and balding patches. The hair loss often appears at the hairline and temple region from the excessive pulling and the tension. Scarring can also be present and the hair growth can stop. If you are experiencing these or more extreme signs, it's important to see a doctor or hair loss specialist to seek treatment and avoid permanent hair loss. I find this to be such a good advice. When you get some of these symptoms, the itching and the swelling and the pustules, it's a clear sign. You have to go and see a specialist. You have to go and see a doctor before things start scarring and the hair will not be able to grow back. Then there is another one, trichotillomania. Trichotillomania. Never heard of before. It's a sort of hair pulling. This is a psychological condition where you cannot stop pulling out hair, which leads to hair loss. Most common places that people pull hair are the scalp, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Well, this sounds more like indeed a psychological thing, but I can well understand if you pull your hair often, or if you pull out your eyebrows or your lashes, that it will not grow back. Didn't know this one. Trichotillomania. Chemotherapy-induced alopecia. Chemotherapy-induced alopecia, the CIA, oh that's funny, the CIA is when the hair falls out following chemotherapy. It is one of the most visible, distressing side effects of commonly administered chemotherapeutic drugs. Well, we all have seen this also. People who have cancer and get the chemotherapy, sometimes all their hair falls out. Good news is a lot of times, most of the times, the hair comes back, maybe in a different texture, but it does come back. So with this one, the follicles are not completely destroyed. Those were the non-scarring alopecia types, but I have also written down some of the scarring alopecia types. And I'll start with the first one. That's the one I suffer from. That's the CCCA, Central Centrifugal Cicatricial Alopecia. I hope I pronounced it well. Central Centrifugal Cicatricial Alopecia. Yes. CCCA is a form of scarring alopecia, it says, on the scalp that results in permanent hair loss. It is the most common form of scarring hair loss seen in Black women. Okay. However, it may be seen in men and amongst persons of all races and hair colors, but rarely. Middle-aged women are most commonly affected. Well, I'm almost 51, so that makes me middle-aged. And yes, I am Black, so I fit this description perfectly. In CCCA, hair tends to start falling out in the middle of the scalp. Hair loss then gradually spreads out from that point. Often people with CCCA notice hair being more brittle and breaking more easily. Other symptoms include itching, pain, and tenderness of the scalp, a spongy texture to the scalp, and flaking or redness of the affected areas. This condition, CCCA, destroys the hair follicle, replaces it with scar tissue, and causes permanent hair loss. In CCCA, hair loss starts in the center of the scalp and slowly spreads outwards. We knew that, yeah. But what's interesting is the exact cause of CCCA is unknown, but this condition is likely to have multiple factors causing it. Experts have suggested that CCCA can have a genetic cause. Might be true. But also hair care practices such as the use of hot comb, relaxers, tight extensions, and weaves have been implicated for decades to be a cause of this type of hair loss. Other proposed causative factors include infections like fungal infections, bacterial infections, and autoimmune diseases. Yeah, I was told that it is a bacterial infection, but also an autoimmune disease. So, yeah. The next scarring alopecia on the list is frontal fibrosing alopecia, FFA. This one is one I've never heard of before either. It says frontal fibrosing alopecia is a type of scarring alopecia where the hair follicle is destroyed and replaced with scar tissue. In frontal fibrosing alopecia, hair falls out across the front of the scalp, and hair loss can also affect the eyebrows. Yeah, didn't notice. Now I do. The next one is, I hope I spelled this correctly. It's called lichen planopilaris. Lichen planopilaris. And in this disease, patches of scalp appear most commonly on the sides, the front and the lower back of the scalp. So that's the sides, the front and the lower back. So the crown gets to stay okay, I guess. And then what else is there? I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Those are the alopecia types that I have found on the internet. Why is this interesting for someone with locks? Well, as we have heard before, with traction alopecia, the weight of your hair, the pulling of your hair can cause this type of alopecia. But with CCCA, also with weakened hair follicles, the pulling and the weight of hair can cause that the follicles let go. So the advice that was given on all websites that I considered, all the websites that I have consulted, all of them said, try to wear your hair in a natural state. No relaxers, no braids, no weaves. If possible, an afro. I know I don't like, I'm sorry, I don't like afros either. I used to have an afro to keep the tension also a bit away from my roots, but I did not like my face with an afro. I looked like a boy. But sometimes we have to, try and find a way to make things work. I remember that after wearing my afro for a while, and I really didn't like it, I started to do the twists, hair twists, which were better. And then I did the twist outs, which were very beautiful. So the twist and the twists out, I like them better than the afro. Well, maybe it's a tip. Maybe it's something that works for you also. If you're looking for something else to do with your hair, if you want to wear it naturally to keep the tension off the roots, maybe that's an idea for you as well. Well, in conclusion, whatever type of alopecia you might suffer from, the effect, the psychological effect of it is exactly the same with everyone. This disease might rip you of your sense of self-worth or your sense of self-esteem or femininity. But like I've said in my previous video, remember that your hair is just your hair. It does not define you, the person that you are, the fantastic person you are, the bubbly person you are, the smart person you are. Take good care of your health and keep well.